Well, this is it, guys. Here we go. We are now wrapping things up. We've started way back when with coming up with a theme and exploring that theme using only lines. Then we evolved that concept into shapes, talking about positive and negative space and how to move the eye around while still keeping to our overall theme. We talked about typography and how to draw in and block in two-dimensional shapes, square, circle, and triangles. Added that in. We added in a sense of pattern, right, using tessellations, and a sense of value in our grayscale painting. We then went through and did some big changes. We did a landscape photo and then painted that landscape that pulls from our own lives into this theme. And we went through and thought about a still life object that we could also incorporate into our overall design. We went through and took that design, gridding it off and expanding it in some way. Maybe you zoomed in a whole lot, or maybe just expanded it ever so slightly. Then we talked about color theory, the idea of using different colors to your advantage. So, did you go with an analogous color scheme, colors that were close together, or did you go with a complementary color scheme, colors that push apart from one another? We set that gridded off enlargement aside, and we finally finished up after a couple weeks with a self-portrait. Now, again, maybe you drew yours portrait, maybe you drew it landscape, it doesn't really matter, but you drew yourself a self-portrait. And now for the final step, we're basically going to merge the two. Now, technically, yes, you could X-Acto blade out your portrait and glue it right on top. And you know what? You're welcome to do that. I'm not going to tell you not to. You are also more than welcome to trace this. So you could put this over top of a light table, or even just hold it up to your window. That works. You can hold it up to a lamp, and that will work too. That's perfectly fine. You could also do what's called a carbon transfer, where you take a pencil and you basically color on the back side of your paper, and then you place that face up like that. And whenever you trace it, it actually pushes the pencil lead, or graphite, from the back that you colored onto the overall paper. And that'll give you a nice little imprint if you want to push it on there. So there are different ways. You can cut it out, you can trace it, and you can carbon transfer it. When you're done, and you're going to see my example here as I finish up my own drawing, but when you're done, you will retain the border for your design, but your self-portrait will go outside of that border. One last little note. You might have lost things in the process that you want to bring back. For myself, whenever I think back to our earlier drawings, right, I kind of liked this swoosh right here. It just stood out to me as looking kind of a neat shape. And I did like the idea of that pearl, that thing that you're reaching for whenever you're kind of going through and exploring the depths of your imagination, of creativity. So anything that you want to add, the sky's the limit, okay? You can alter, change, manipulate anything you want to. Another idea that you may want to do is overlap your elements. Again, you don't have to, but once you've drawn out your picture, perhaps, like in my case, I've got these kind of jaggedy edges. What if I put them on top of my portrait, right? No one says I can't do that. So that will sink the portrait into the design, and it's going to play with this framing a little bit if all of a sudden these kind of triangular shapes are now floating on top and pushing and pulling. It's going to give a really nice sense of three-dimensional space, even though it's a two-dimensional design. When you're all done, do make sure that at least the background still retains your color scheme that you've already decided on. You can change it at this point, but I probably wouldn't change it too much. You picked a good color, you thought about your colors. I wouldn't change that if I were you. But everything can be changed. You have complete creative control at this point, so you can alter and change if you want to pull other elements from previous designs back. But when you're done, you will end up with a self-portrait and some kind of graphical image with a border behind or in front of your self-portrait. Maybe there's pieces that are, overlapping, whatever you decide. When everything is said and done, you'll have completed this, and then we're going to go through and basically write up an explanation. So your very big, complete final, the thing you're finally turning in, is going to be this big finale picture and a written kind of summary, an explanation. What were all of these things that you did along the way? Why did you choose these colors, this particular element? Why did you turn the paper this way? Every decision you made along the way, every single one, had a purpose and a point. Even if you told yourself that it was just random and you didn't really know why you chose it, every single choice was made by you to get you to this point, okay? Hopefully, when you're all done, you've written up your artist statement explaining your piece of artwork, you've painted in the background, you've got a black and white self-portrait, and everything's said and done. My goal, my hope for you guys is that you like it enough that you scamper out to your local Walmart, dollar store, wherever you want to go, Michael's, art supply store, and you purchase yourself a nice frame and you hang this thing up. I hope that you're so happy with this slightly abstract, slightly realistic work of art that you've made for yourself that you want everyone to see, post it online, show the world, because at this point, you're an artist. You've done the same process that every other artist before you has done. You've learned some techniques along the way, and that's all good and fine. That's for the sake of the class. But you have thought about these ideas, these concepts. You've been following a main thread, a main theme this entire time. That's what every great artist does. They have an idea and they want to express that idea, because art is nothing more than communication. All these techniques that we've learned along the way, everything we've done so far, it doesn't matter, because you could be the world's greatest, most realistic artist. You could paint something so strikingly amazing, but if there's no beating heart behind it, no one's going to want to see. When you walked through that museum on the first day when we talked about coming up with a theme, I'm sure you passed by works of art that put anything you could create to shame. That, things that you could spend an entire lifetime and still not be that good. And yet, you walked by it. You didn't spend more than 3 seconds looking at it. It didn't strike you. And that only comes from this process, from going through and thinking about why you're doing what you're doing, right? That is the takeaway from this class. It has nothing to do with making a work of art. It has to do with, did you think about thinking, right? Did you think about why you did what you did? And that can help you in any aspect of your life. So I hope you had fun. I hope you've enjoyed all of these projects. I'm sure some of them you didn't like, and that's perfectly fair. I'm going to go ahead and finish this one up, and I'm going to call it a day. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this class, in person, online, all around. I do hope that you've taken something away, and I hope that you're proud of what you've made. Otherwise, all the best, and hopefully I'll see you again real soon. Bye, everyone.